Waiter humiliates Keanu Reeves. Unaware, he owns the restaurant. The night was cool and busy in the heart of the city. Lumiere, a renowned upscale restaurant, glittered under soft golden lights and sparkling chandeliers. The place was known for its pristine service and stylish guests. That evening, however, a man who did not fit the expected image walked in. Keanu Reeves, dressed in a worn-out jacket, faded jeans, and scuffed boots, entered quietly. His clothes were plain and a bit shabby, nothing like the expensive designer labels that the regular guests wore. He walked with a steady, calm pace, his eyes taking in every detail of the elegant dining room. At the entrance, a young waiter named Jake noticed him immediately. Clad in a crisp uniform and armed with a smug smile, Jake approached Keanu with a skeptical look. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right place?" Jake asked, his tone laced with disbelief. "This isn't a place well, for people dressed like you." Keanu smiled gently. "I'd like a table, please," he replied calmly, his voice steady and kind. Jake snorted quietly. "A table? You must be mistaken. We have a strict dress code here. If you want fine dining, you need to dress the part." But Keanu only nodded and stepped forward, his calm presence contrasting sharply with Jake's harsh tone. Without further argument, Jake reluctantly led him toward a small, less noticeable table at the back of the restaurant. As he passed, some of the other guests exchanged curious glances, silently wondering who this unassuming man might be. After settling into his seat, Keanu quietly opened the menu. Jake lingered nearby, his eyes never leaving the man in shabby clothes. He leaned down and said, "Our chef's special is $200. Are you sure you want that?" Keanu looked up, still calm. "Yes, please. I'd like to try it," he answered, his tone polite but firm. Jake's face twisted into a sneer. "I hope you can pay," he muttered loud enough for nearby diners to hear. "Not everyone is cut out for our menu." A small murmur of agreement rippled among some of the guests, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Yet, Keanu's response remained unruffled. He simply nodded and continued to study the menu, as if nothing were amiss. When the dish finally arrived, Keanu took a bite and closed his eyes in quiet appreciation. "This is excellent," he said softly, almost to himself. Jake, still hovering in the background, couldn't hide his disdain. "Excellent? I bet you didn't expect this kind of quality at your price," he remarked sarcastically. Though the comment was meant to sting, Keanu's calm smile never faded. He thanked the kitchen with a nod as he ate, each bite measured and serene. The restaurant's ambient chatter continued, but the tension around Keanu's table grew with every dismissive word from Jake. The situation was soon interrupted by the arrival of the restaurant's manager, Mr. Thomas, a dignified man in a well-tailored suit, with kind eyes but a stern presence. As he walked through the dining room, his gaze landed on Keanu, and his face softened with surprise. "Mr. Reeves!" Mr. Thomas called out warmly, his tone full of respect and genuine delight. "We are honored to have you here tonight." A hush fell over the room. Jake's confident expression faltered, and the other guests leaned in, their curiosity piqued. Keanu looked up slowly, acknowledging Mr. Thomas with a slight nod. Jake's eyes darted between the two men. He had been ridiculing this customer, yet now the manager spoke as if Keanu were a very important guest. "Sir, Jake began, but his voice trailed off under the weight of the manager's respectful tone. Mr. Thomas stepped closer. "I wasn't aware you planned to visit, Mr. Reeves. Please, let me know how we can make your evening more enjoyable." His words were warm and inviting, a stark contrast to Jake's earlier harshness. Keanu, still calm and collected, replied with gentle firmness, "Thank you. I am fine for now, but I would like to have a brief word with the staff later." The restaurant buzzed with low whispers. The moment carried an unspoken message. There was much more to this man than met the eye. Jake, however, was growing visibly uncomfortable, his earlier confidence evaporating as he wondered what he might have done wrong. Later that evening, as the restaurant began to empty, Mr. Thomas gathered his team in a quiet corner. The conversation turned serious as he addressed the behavior that had unfolded. "Everyone," Mr. Thomas said in a measured tone, "tonight, we witnessed a moment where we failed to live up to our values of respect and warmth. I expect each one of you to remember that every guest deserves dignity, no matter their appearance." Jake stood at the back, his eyes fixed on the floor. His mind raced with regret and confusion. How had he misjudged Mr. Reeves so badly? Unable to contain his guilt any longer, Jake stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, I am sorry. I thought you didn't belong here because of your clothes, but I realize now that I was wrong." Mr. Thomas placed a gentle hand on Jake's shoulder. "It takes courage to admit a mistake, Jake. But we need to understand that judging someone on their appearance is a poor measure of character." Keanu, who had been quietly listening from his table, rose and approached the small gathering. His presence was calming, his eyes reflecting both sadness and understanding. "I appreciate your apology," he said softly. "But let's be clear, respect is not something that can be earned by appearances. It is given to every human being." Jake's eyes widened as the weight of Keanu's words sank in. The room fell silent as he struggled with his own remorse. The waiter's arrogance had been stripped away, leaving only humility in its place. The air grew thick with anticipation. Jake's heart pounded as he realized he needed answers. He looked up at Keanu with trembling eyes. "Mr. Reeves, may I ask something?" he managed to say. Keanu's calm gaze met his. "Of course," he replied kindly. Jake hesitated, then blurted out, "You're one of our most important guests, yet you came dressed so simply. Why did you come in this way?" A brief pause followed, as the question hung in the air. Keanu's smile turned gentle and knowing. "I came to check on my restaurant," he said quietly. "I wanted to see how we treat everyone, whether they are treated with the care and respect they deserve." At that moment, Jake's face flushed with shock and disbelief. "Check on your restaurant?" he echoed, his voice shaky. "But why didn't you say something earlier?" Keanu's eyes softened further as he explained, "I believe true strength is found in humility and kindness. I wanted to see if my staff would treat me like any other guest, without the bias of my reputation. And tonight, I learned an important lesson." Jake's eyes filled with tears as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. The arrogance he once wore now melted away under the honest light of Keanu's words. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. I never thought that you, the owner of this place, would come like this." Keanu nodded slowly. "I came to check it all, not to humiliate anyone, but to remind us all that every person deserves respect. We must look beyond what meets the eye." The manager, Mr. Thomas, stepped forward with quiet authority. "Let this be a turning point. Tonight, we witnessed a moment of truth, and I trust that all of you will take this lesson to heart." The atmosphere in the room changed dramatically. Guests, who had once whispered among themselves, now shared looks of understanding. Jake, overwhelmed with remorse and gratitude for the chance to learn, bowed his head. After the conversation, the restaurant staff gathered in a small meeting room to discuss the evening's events. Mr. Thomas reiterated the importance of treating every guest with kindness, regardless of their outward appearance. The lesson was clear and had struck a chord with everyone, especially with Jake. Later, as the night grew quieter and the last of the diners left, Jake approached Keanu's table. His voice was soft and sincere as he said, "Mr. Reeves, I truly am sorry. I have learned today that judging a person by how they look is never right. I promise to work on my behavior." Keanu placed a gentle hand on Jake's shoulder and smiled warmly. "Thank you, Jake. Change begins with recognizing our mistakes. I believe you can become better, and that is what matters most. Jake's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as he absorbed the lesson. I never expected to learn something so important tonight, he admitted, his voice trembling. I thought I was just doing my job. I was wrong. Keanu replied calmly. Sometimes, the simplest actions can reveal our true selves. I came here in simple clothes, not because I was careless about appearances, but because I wanted to check on the service, to see if every guest, regardless of their look, was treated with respect. A moment of silence fell as the weight of Keanu's words settled in. Mr. Thomas then added, "Let tonight remind us all that the true value of a person is in their heart, not their clothes or wealth." The conversation moved on to plans for staff training and improvements in customer service, with a renewed focus on empathy and respect. Guests who had observed the scene left with a sense of hope, believing that even in the smallest interactions, great changes could begin. Outside, as Keanu stepped onto the sidewalk under the glittering city lights, he paused for a moment. The cool air brushed his face, and he looked back at Lumiere. In that reflective pause, he thought about how one simple act, a choice to be kind and humble, could ripple out and touch many lives. He walked away with a light step and a warm heart. His final words echoed softly in the night air, a message to all who would listen. In a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. I came here in simple dress to check on my restaurant, to see that every person is valued. Let us always remember that respect and understanding make us truly rich. And so, under the starlit sky, the lesson of the evening lived on, not just within the walls of Lumiere, but in every heart that had witnessed the power of humility and compassion. In a world where appearances often cloud judgment, true strength lies in humility, kindness, and the willingness to learn from our mistakes. Respect should be given freely to every individual, regardless of how they look or where they come from. By looking beyond the surface, we not only uplift others, but also enrich our own lives. If this story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on how you treat those around you. Share this message of kindness and empathy with your friends and family. And if you believe in the power of respect over appearances, please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that remind us all to choose kindness every day.